Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be part of this event. As was mentioned, I'm a professor of philosophy, and one of the things I do is I teach Introduction to Ethics. And when I first started out, I'm an American, I kind of approached my job with a naive optimism. I had a kind of grandiose idea that I was going to change these students, change their lives, shake up their moral belief system to the core. So I'd start out and I'd say, look, here's what's distinctive about moral philosophy. Everybody has moral opinions, everybody has moral beliefs, but moral philosophy is the business of justifying those beliefs. How do we justify our beliefs? We do it with reasons. We do it with argument. And then I'd give a good series of examples. I try to choose examples that were really controversial, that people had really strong opinions about. So same-sex marriage, prostitution or pornography, legalizing drugs. I've come to the right country for these examples. It seems like. By the way, there's a terrible rumor I heard that they're going to start banning tourists from coffee shops. Don't do it, please. If I can morally persuade you of one thing. Anyhow, I usually use same-sex marriage, and I ask the class, well, what are some reasons that people offer to oppose same-sex marriage? Students offer some. We subject those to scrutiny to see how well they hold up. Usually, they don't hold up so well. But my point in this is not to convince them of anything, but it's just to let them know, to have them see how the method works, how this method they can apply throughout their lives will work to change other people's minds and also to make sure that their own beliefs can stand up to scrutiny, that they're on solid ground. Okay, so then we go into the theories, and you've just heard about some of them, utilitarianism, Kantianism, Aristotelian ethics, and then we get to Peter Singer, who you just heard from, a man I have a lot of respect for, and students start to perk up. Singer, for those of you who aren't familiar with his work, has throughout his career developed arguments, really sophisticated, clear and compelling arguments for conclusions that many people, most people, think are absolutely insane. Now, it didn't sound like that there. That's definitely true. But the famine, affluence, and morality, the conclusion of that article is that as individuals, we should be devoting somewhere like 40 to 50% of our income, never spend any income on luxuries or non-necessities, give all of that to help other people. And all of a sudden, students, their hands start to shoot up. They desperately want to reject this conclusion. And I teach another article on animal welfare. Same thing, these students just, they really want to resist this conclusion. They want to keep eating hamburgers, right, and not feel guilty about it. They want to work hard, earn money, and keep it and spend it on themselves and not devote so much of it to help people across the world that they don't know. And I say, that's fine. You want to reject his conclusion, but tell me which of those premises is false. Those premises lead logically to the conclusion. If you want to resist the conclusion, tell me which of those premises are implausible. And man, that's tough to do with Singer. And the students get very frustrated by that. But here's what surprised me and discouraged me a little bit, is that even though that was true, the majority of students, vast majority, can't figure out a way to object to the premises, they still didn't buy the conclusion. They weren't buying the conclusion. Yeah, they might admit they didn't have good reason to, but the fact is their minds had not been changed. They had not been morally persuaded. A couple years ago, I ran a little classroom experiment. We were about to read two of the most famous articles on abortion. Certainly the two most philosophically compelling articles that I know of. Before we did, I asked the students, how many of you have really strong feelings about abortion, really strong opinion on this issue? It's a big class, about 80 or 90 raised their hand. So then we read the articles, went over them in depth, considered objections, considered their strengths. And then, this is now about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I said, okay, we're done with that. Now, raise your hand if you've shifted your position on abortion. And it doesn't have to be from pro-life to pro-choice or vice versa. It can even be a more subtle change. Maybe you're a little less certain than you were before. 2 people raised their hand. 2 students out of the 80 or 90. Now, I was taken aback by this, I have to admit. I mean, I thought, what the hell am I doing? What's the point of my job? What's the point of teaching these articles if they're not changing anybody's mind? And then, when I thought of myself, and I thought, well, when was the last time I changed one of my moral beliefs because of an argument or a series of arguments? And yeah, it was hard to think. And think yourselves, when was the last time that happened to you? I bet it happens a lot less often than we think, and a lot less often than we'd like to think. So again, what is the point of my job? You might expect that I have a triumphant answer to that question, but I don't really. But I have been doing a lot of thinking about what makes how moral persuasion really works, and especially the role that reason plays and the role it doesn't play. And looking at a lot of work in the social sciences, come to the conclusion that reason or rational argument is a lot less effective in changing people's mind than philosophers imagined, than I imagined. And I just want to go through a couple reasons why that is. The first reason is that reason is sort of a double agent. We use it sometimes as a dispassionate judge to try to figure out what the best course of action is, or the most morally correct course of action is. But we also use it, and we do this a lot, we use it to justify what we already believe post hoc. We're really good at post hoc rationalization. We're really good at finding reasons to justify what we want to believe. So, Singer might offer great arguments, reasons to be a vegetarian, but he can't be there when you're coming up with your own reasons why it's okay for you to eat that steak. Second problem with reason or rational argument is that it's abstract. It relies on general principles, general ethical principles. And so it's impersonal. And we're not motivated by general principles. We're not motivated by abstractions. And if you think about it, this makes sense. Why did moral norms evolve in our species in the first place? It evolved to get us, to motivate us to cooperate in real life situations, to take care of our relatives, to be loyal to our friends, to punish people who try to harm them, and to punish people who violate moral norms within the community. All of this in real life situations, right? And the mechanisms that motivate behavior of this kind are the emotions. Emotions like empathy, a sense of shame, a sense of honor, moral outrage, moral indignation. These are the emotions that do that work, and they're triggered by real-life situations. The closer, the more familiar, the more we feel it, the more we're going to act. So that's a real problem with rational argument and general principles. And you know, Singer, although he's been doing a lot of research now in psychology and is trying to adjust his views to this, but he's always taken a very different approach. He leads off his book, Animal Liberation, by saying that what motivated him to get so involved in the animal welfare movement is not that he loves animals. He says, I'm not really that interested in animals. He just wants to put a stop to the suffering of sentient beings in general. Now, I believe him. I think he's sincere, but I think that's exceedingly rare. And in fact, he himself once said that what made animal liberation so profoundly influential was not, in the end, his elegant utilitarian arguments that he gives in that book, but instead the vivid descriptions of what goes on in factory farms and in laboratories. And importantly, the pictures in the center of the book. You read those descriptions, you see those pictures, and you say, oh my God, this is awful, this is terrible, this has got to stop. Our sense of shame, our sense of outrage is triggered by those things. And you know, this is why factory farms now in America and across the world do their best to make it so that nobody photographs or videotapes what goes on there. Because when you see these pigs, they're just as intelligent as dogs or more, and just as social, and they're confined for their whole lives in these narrow cages. Well, that's when your empathy is triggered. That's when you say, I've got to stop. Not suffering in general, unjustified suffering of sentient beings in general, but this, we've got to stop this. And that's why they don't want you to see it. But it's not because you're going to learn any new facts, right? We all know in the back of our minds that it's not pretty what goes on in laboratories and in factory farms. But when you see these videos or you read an especially vivid description, you start to appreciate those facts in new and significant ways. Now, it's true that our emotions can be manipulated, and this is why philosophers since Plato have distrusted our emotions. Plato saw our emotions as distortions of our moral judgment, and he thought reason informed our moral judgments. And that's absolutely true. Emotions can be manipulated. Our sense of disgust, for example, is often used to get us to hate other people or to withhold rights and privileges for them. But where I think Plato and his followers were wrong, or at least they didn't emphasize enough how much emotion can inform our moral judgments as well. And I'll end by giving an example of that, and it's an example that I started with, the same-sex marriage debate. So does everybody know what the greatest predictor of whether you're for or against same-sex marriage is? It's not, as you might expect, whether you're conservative or liberal. It's not whether you're religious or non-religious. It's just, someone get it? It's how old you are, right? The last time they did this study, it was over 35, you were more likely to be opposed. Under 35, you're more likely to be in favor. And the older you are, the more vehemently you're disposed to be against same-sex marriage. Now, why is that? Have younger people just been exposed to some new and really persuasive or compelling moral argument or rational argument? A far more plausible explanation is that the gay community is so much more out in the open right now, in the popular media, in films, in television, in books, and also younger people are far more likely to know somebody who's gay. And when that happens, for the younger generation, gay people, the gay community, they cease to be something alien. They cease to be a threat. They cease to be a cause. They just become real people. And our empathy is triggered. You start to think, you start to really feel what it must be like to have certain rights, basic rights, denied. I mean, my students, they're a conservative bunch. I teach in Texas, right? But they barely even understand why this is an issue. They barely even understand why anybody is against same-sex marriage. And this has nothing to do with arguments. This has nothing to do with reason. It's pure empathy and familiarity. And that's why I think as philosophers and as people, and philosophers are people, contrary to popular opinion, we need to stop giving short shrift to the emotions and start figuring out how to use them effectively and responsibly, both as a means of moral persuasion and as a way of attaining a deeper and richer understanding of the issues that we care about. So thank you.